Am I taking it away? Or did you have to say anything?
No, I think we have
Okay.
we have you moderating the session. So if you guys are all set, I'm here for help, but we'll get it going.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. I'll be probably the 100th person to congratulate you on being accepted to the University of Rochester, but I appreciate you taking 30 minutes out of your Saturday for us to talk about our Wellness and Resilience program at the University of Rochester. I am Dr. Newton, so my job title is that I'm the Medical Student Wellness and Career Counseling Specialist. That changes every single day. I swear that job is evolving as we speak. And then I'm also really excited to have Nick and Kirsten with me today. They're two of our second year students. They are also the class representatives on the wellness committee. So I'll just give them a quick minute to introduce themselves. And if you see them flipping flashcards as I'm speaking, it's because they're studying for step 1 right now. So don't judge them, let them do what they need to do. The fact they're here, we're really lucky to have them. But go ahead, Nick, if you don't mind saying a couple words.
So hey everyone, my name is Nick. Like Dr. Newton said, I'm a second year and I'm also one of the wellness committee representatives for my class along with Kirsten. It's really exciting to see you all here today. It sounds like people are interested in wellness, which is great. Yeah, the wellness committee has been a really great experience. I've been a member since my first year. I've really enjoyed the committee. We've done some really good work and I'm excited to talk with you all today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kirsten. I'm a second year student with Nick. I did my undergrad here in Rochester, so I obviously love it enough to be staying around for a full 8 years. I just got involved with the wellness committee this past year, which was definitely an interesting time to start getting involved with wellness during COVID. But wellness is always something that's been important for me. So I'm excited to meet you all, hopefully next year, and hear what questions you have for us today.
Perfect. Well, I want everyone to think about, so for this to be as interactive as possible. So if you have questions, please ask as we go, or think about, what are some things that drew you to this session today? So why are you here? Why is wellness important to you? Or why are you curious about what we're doing in this area? So if we don't cover what you were hoping to find out today, please ask, let us know. But I really want this to be as much about what you want to learn today, not what we want you to hear. I am going to share just a couple brief slides, just so it keeps me on track as I'm talking, because Nick and Kirsten can let you know I can go off track once in a while with my own thoughts. So we will talk about, does that look okay? Like looks like a slide, thank you. So I like to joke, when your family members ask you like, oh, what do you do for work? Or anybody, actually, probably the first thing they ask you is, what do you do? And I say, oh, I work in medical student wellness. And they're like, what is that? And I like to joke that the majority of my arrows are those on the ground when I try to accomplish what wellness is. It's such a unique and individual definition, right? So if we went around this virtual room right now and I asked you, what does wellness mean to you? My guesses will have, I don't know how many people are on the call, but that many different answers. There's of course common themes, especially with the medical student population. And those are some unique challenges that really drew me to this type of work. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But really it's like hitting a moving target. And then this last year, somebody put a blindfold on us and they put us in a dark room and they were like, figure it out. So we'll talk a lot about what kind of the program was before and how we're evolving and how we need to always continue to evolve. So this last year, I don't need to probably let anybody know that it's been a challenging year, but especially in our medical school environment, it's been exceptionally challenging. Just a very quick timeline. We went fully remote. So last March 2020 until August 2020, the University of Rochester until that point did not record lecture. And we just switched it over within about a week. And then in the fall, we brought our students back to an extent for this hybrid curriculum. So, lecture, large group session, very large group sessions are all done on Zoom. And then we have some in-person activities and our small group activities like PBL, TBL. No, actually TBL was virtual as well. That was a bad example. But then going through the 4 phases or 4 years. So as you see, so phase 1 and phase 2 indicate the curriculum shift that we're a part of. years 3 and 4. So we're going to be hitting phase 3 this upcoming year, if that's why you see a difference between phase and year. So phase 1 students, this is probably pretty applicable to you as well, because you're thinking, what are the students just ahead of me? What did they experience this last year? And they've yet to be in a large group setting. So, you know, Rochester really likes to promote this sense of community and what is the Rochester experience, right? And this just flipped upside down in a year. So we've had to work really hard to try to accomplish that in different ways. We'll talk about that. But they've yet to be all together as one class. And it's our hope that that doesn't happen this upcoming year. Phase 2 students, I will absolutely let Nick and Kirsten talk more about this. But I would argue, don't put me on the, oh, this is being recorded, but don't put me on the record. I think phase 2 had really probably the most challenges and were put through a lot of unexpected changes quickly. They adjusted their study schedule and how they prepped in that year 1, right? Lecture was in person and they could have, you know, a routine and they had their network. And then phase 2, everything just changed on them. On top of being the last class to have step 1 have a score, which I'm sorry, sore subject, Nick and Kirsten, but it's a challenge we need to acknowledge. And then year 3, clerkship schedules changed abruptly. Their clerkship experiences were changed. Step 1 deadlines changed. So just kind of all this unknown. And then of course, year 4, first class ever to go through the residency process virtually. So we had to work to help them prepare for that very quickly. And make things, you know, virtual interview prep and going through the match process online. So just things across the board have been chaotic, uncertain. How do we support students through this? And then all students, of course, adjusting meaningful plans. So really, I think part of the Rochester experience is your community engagement within the Rochester community, within the med school community. You know, we've found that we actually worked on a study this last year of how your volunteer work impacts your medical student well-being, and how a lot of our students are really missing that, you know, work that they get to study and learn, you know, in the classroom that they get to go do in the community. And there's opportunities, but it's been extremely limited this year. Research work, international work, of course, you know, our global health program is huge and we really are supportive of students that would love to go do that. Is on halt, right? And then just challenges with isolation, lack of community engagement. I know I've said that about 10 times at this point, but it's important. And then mental and emotional fatigue on top of course, physical fatigue that medical students face, but that mental and emotional, I think is pretty high this year. So I would love to hear from Nick and Kirsten just a little bit about maybe that shift from year 1 to 2 and how this year has been different, and just some things that have been helpful for you to get through the year.
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, Dr. Newton, you put it really well. It was really just a total 180 going from our first year to our second year. In first year, we would have class together. It would be nice to see pretty much everyone go to class every day. You can talk to people. And then suddenly early March, we were all virtual and it was definitely challenging not to see people. And even throughout this year, as COVID guidelines have shifted throughout the year, it's been difficult to figure out, you know, what are okay activities to do together, what are things that are still unsafe to do. So it's been challenging just from a social perspective and obviously from an academic perspective, as Dr. Newton mentioned as well. It's been tough figuring out how to adjust your study schedule, figuring out what is important that is emphasized in a lecture versus things that are online, things like that. I think for me, wellness is a huge part of my life, and I really try to prioritize that all throughout medical school. Something that's important to me is sort of maintaining physical fitness and wellness. So I'm a really big runner and I love to do runs, and there have been definitely many days over the past year where I've had a frustrating 8 hours over Zoom, or things had to shift unexpectedly, or you know, things just didn't go according to schedule, and I just picked up and went for a nice run afterwards, and usually that makes me feel a lot better. So figuring out ways to maintain my physical wellness has been really critical for my success over this past year. Something else I've tried to do is myself and a couple other second year students, we've tried to bring physical wellness to most of students on campus. We started a chapter of a group called Medicine in Motion, which is a national organization among medical schools to try to promote wellness using physical fitness. So that's something I've been really trying to focus on this year, is maintaining my own wellness and the wellness of my classmates as well.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, so I think Nick stated a lot of those challenges really well. I think probably one of the big things for me that helped with my wellness was that we were in person for many things this year. So we were able to get into school for PBL, problem-based learning, as well as our primary care clerkship. And I think having that connection with people on campus was really wonderful. And then also the work that we're doing through the Wellness Committee. I'm not sure if we'll kind of talk about some of those different initiatives we've tried out later, but just trying to see what works when we're in a virtual world.
Mhm. Definitely. It's almost like I paid Kirsten to say that, because that's actually where we're going in the next slide. So the rehearsal was great for that. We did not rehearse, by the way. But yeah, it's been a really tough year I think it's the committee, and Nick and Kirsten, I think, can weigh in on this as well, just about their experience throughout the year. But it's been really, really tough to just kind of see where students are with their current, well-being, when we're not getting to see each other in the halls or check in with one another, in the student lounge or the atrium or admissions area, where, that's where the coffee is. So wherever you have coffee, you will find med students. I've learned that. But it's just been really tough. We've done, a couple surveys to try to get a sense of how our classmates are doing, but not everybody wants to do that. And I think that there's a lot of fatigue with having to fill out one more evaluation or one more survey. We've tried, but what are the things we've done over this really challenging year? So one, I don't know how many times I could put many, and the fact we're all on Zoom right now just shows you how many Zooms we've had over the last year. And I call it, at this point, Zoom gloom. It's tough to be on Zoom over and over and over again, but we've tried. So we've had drop-in sessions. So the Assistant Dean of Student Affairs, Dr. Castle, and I have done different types of drop-in sessions for different student groups. There's been class yoga sessions led. I'm just putting in here what I know. So Nick and Kirsten add some others if you know some stuff. We had a cooking event recently that the committee helped organize, where one of our medical students picked. We sent out the list of ingredients ahead of time, and then they talked people through how to cook this new recipe. We've had game nights, but Zoom really, since we've had this limitation with social distancing and what the school can or cannot support, we've really had to use Zoom in some strategic ways. It has been getting a little bit better recently with vaccinations, but we've been pretty limited with the amount of in-person activities we can do unless they're outdoors. Those that are familiar with Rochester, or you will know soon, that the winter's really hard to embrace the outdoors, but there are ways we'll talk about. An increase in support across the university. So one really silver lining with COVID is that it pushed the university to collaborate more than it had before. So the med centers, it's associated on one side of a street, and then the rest of the university is really on this other side of the street. And, Kirsten went to undergrad here, and then, you're a medical student now. But other than that, I think that not many students make it across the road. And it kind of goes both ways. So both areas are kind of separate worlds. And COVID really pushed us to come together and find ways that we can support our students across the university. So one example is we have this basic needs hub, where now if a student would like to request some additional funding for an emergency situation, groceries, something happens with a bill, now we're using Wi-Fi and stuff at home more than we've ever used. That's an opportunity to provide some financial support for basic needs. And then the food pantry, which up until COVID was only provided for our undergrad students, opened up university-wide. And so with that, the need for the food pantry, the support, just increased exponentially. So actually Kirsten did a great job of organizing a food drive around the holidays, and we were able to provide, I can't remember, it was at least over 200 items to the food pantry as a donation, which has been huge. Other things that we were really trying to be strategic with, so activities outside. Nick can talk a little bit more about this, because I think that you, with your the program that you're a part of, I think you've had a lot more outdoor activities, but hiking, running. We had a sledding event with the phase 1 students. I know for Thanksgiving, so there's this limitation where many students did not travel for Thanksgiving. We tried to be strategic and organize some hikes on Thanksgiving Day so people could still get together and have some human contact on that day. And then another thing that I've seen, which I haven't actually shared with the committee yet, but it was just a part of a meeting recently, is we've had a huge increase in some of our academic support. So we have the Center for Excellence Teaching and Learning, which provides study skills, tutoring, not tutoring, but can help you to an extent with some tutoring stuff. They have expanded with how many students that they're seeing, and they're actually hiring another role just to help focus on medical student support because of how many students are using this resource. And Zoom, I believe, is a huge piece of that because that office is located on River Campus. So our students are able to just have increased accessibility through this Zoom option. And then I provide academic coaching. We go over things like time management, sleep hygiene. Sometimes we just talk about how to not watch the next episode on Netflix and put Netflix down and open your book back up. But I've been meeting with students more this year than ever. And I think part of that is Zoom as well as the just awareness that this resource exists. And then just creativity as a whole. So our phase 1 students just had a plant event where I think there was a much better title than plant event that they put this under, but it was basically self-care, self-growth with a plant. And so every student had the option to come pick up a plant. We had, I think it was around 90 of the 104 students show up, which is huge for any medical student event. We're usually lucky if we get about 25, 30. And everyone got this plant and they were naming them and they were so excited to, kind of connect over this little tiny succulent, but it was a win. And then we had our step 1 goodie bags that Nick and Kirsten organized. We had coffee gift card, Post-its, pens, highlighters, all these, essentials for step 1 prep. But we did that on the last official exam of the second year curriculum. So it was kind of a nice send off since our second years right now are in protected time for step 1 prep, that they could just have a little something to know we were thinking about them. So, and Nick and Kirsten, I'll give you all the credit for all that because you definitely took the lead. And then just, another example is we were trying to think of ways to get out in the community that were safe and followed our guidelines. So we purchased a bunch of zoo tickets. I think we started with about 75 to the local zoo thinking maybe students would be interested, and we had to buy about 150 more. It just became like everybody wanted to go to the zoo, which is great because we're also supporting a local place, but we're just revisiting things that we can do in the next couple of weeks as well, which that may be another option. But Nick and Kirsten, do you have any comments about, or am I forgetting any programs that we implemented, or just comments on the challenges of coming up with things that were helpful this year?
I think that covers a lot of what we worked on this year, but I think this year really challenged us to be creative in the ways that we could reach out to people around the school. One thing that I'm remembering that we did that was organized by 2 of our 4th year representatives was a card making event right before the holidays, where Dr. Castle, one of our deans, her grandmother had made these beautiful handmade note cards. And we had this display set up in our student lounge where you could kind of anonymously write a note to another one of the classes. So you could be like, oh, this is a note for the 4th year students from a second year, hang in there. And then you could go and take one of those encouraging notes for yourself. So it was really just nice to see people finding ways to reach out to each other and recognizing that this year was a big challenge for many of us, and figuring out those ways that we could support each other even when we couldn't be in person together.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just add that I think what you see on this slide is the product of a lot of creative thinking and brainstorming. And this committee, I think, works really hard with limited resources and time to find ways to support medical student wellness. And going back to Dr. Newton's slide, because wellness is so different for so many people, it's really hard to find events and support systems and resources that are working for the entire medical student body. So it's really challenging, but really rewarding work to be in this committee. So that's just a personal reason why I really appreciate the things we do.
And I will say too, I'm so appreciative of the students that serve on our community committee, kind of both. And Nick and Kirsten have played such an active role during a really challenging, tough year. In second years, it's hard just alone without, pandemic challenges as well. But our students, they volunteer. Yes, they get elected to be on the committee, but this is extra time, extra effort. And we would not have a program without our student input. So it's so invaluable. And I'm so appreciative because this is student run, it's student centered, and it needs to be. The school can do as much as it can, or think about, focus on different areas as much as we think we should. But our students need to drive this effort, and we wouldn't have a program without our students. So I just want to show one last thing. And then I really would love to open this up for some questions and thinking about, what, as an incoming student, what resources and support are you looking for or hoping to have? But I just wanted to show really quickly our newsletter. And so we have one coming up, and this comes out we're about quarterly right now. And this is a great way for us to share what resources we have broadly. Our website, which if you haven't seen yet, please take a look at some point, it's there, but you don't always think to go to a website. So this newsletter is just a really helpful reminder of the things that we're working on. We start with all of our resources in the top left corner. All of these are direct links to where you need to go. We have student input. So like Nick was working on the motion and medicine study. We put this in there to try to kind of promote one, that this exists, and two, they were working on, they're asking for participation on a survey. We remind people of their reps, and we have little bios on the website, just so you know who's representing the class. So take a look at that if you're interested in maybe thinking about running, just see, who's there. We have the coaching options. We have the food pantry links, UCC, so University Counseling Center, huge resource. We usually put some articles in there that are relevant to that time. So maybe it's step 1 prep, maybe it's, going through the virtual residency process. We try to make things relevant when the newsletter is coming out. I thought this was a really cool idea this year. But as our students were getting vaccinated, they offered, different photos that we could promote in the newsletter. And then we always try to have our committee reps talk about things that they're doing to stay well during that time. So, it's tough in the winter. And maybe that's my bias because I don't love the cold. But, it's just a nice reminder of things that people are doing, or maybe, different places you haven't explored yet. So you can get out and go connect in that way. This was after we had our food pantry drive. So we wanted to just promote about that. And then just reminders of spaces that are available. So I just wanted to share this really quickly, just so you get an idea of how we're also sending resources out and reminding people of what exists. And I see the chat is going off. It's really hard when you're sharing a screen. And am I missing anything right now? Okay. All right. Everyone can hear me okay? Or yeah? Okay. So I'm going to open it up to the group at this point. Does anyone have any questions for whether it's me, Nick, Kirsten, or just about the program in itself?
Tressa, would you mind answering the question of how do you survive winter if you're not from a winter place in terms of your mental health?
Well, buy a really good coat and boots would be my first. No, yeah, of course you're going to need that. I think it can be challenging, with the weather and the impact it can have on your well-being. And I would push it back to the individual as well and think about what are some activities or things that you can do during, if you're feeling like I don't want to go outside, or I just want to stay home and snuggle under my blanket with my puppy. I think it's important that you think about what you can do within those limitations. And so like, if I were to ask Nick and ask Kirsten what they do to stay well in the winter, it's probably quite different, because I'm picturing Nick out there running, which I wouldn't even do in the summer, with like some really good sneakers. But I would like to ask Nick and Kirsten to weigh in about how do you stay well in the winter? And if either of you don't like winter, that would probably help me out here.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do love to run in the winter. Dr.
I
Newton,
knew
so,
it. I knew it.
all weather shoes really are just great. But I think it is tough, especially if you're not from the area and you haven't really experienced snow to a significant degree, or the cold. I have classmates that are also from areas that were, haven't experienced snow. And I think strategies they use are just sort of to like keep in contact with friends, figure out like what are activities they can do together that are still socially distant and safe at the time to stay connected and well. I would urge people who are not super familiar with cold weather and snow to be a little bit more welcoming and accepting of it. There are a lot of fun things you can do outside. There's lots of fun ice skating around here. I'm really into snowboarding and skiing, and there's lots of great areas like that. Even things like snowshoeing and like cross country skiing are really fun to try at least once. And if you end up feeling like you fall in love with it, like that's just a plus. So that's sort of the advice I have for dealing with winter.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Dr. Newton, I also like the winter. I'm from Massachusetts. But I think some of the things that I do to maintain my wellness during the winter are some of the things that I also try to do year round. So it's not freezing cold and snowing every single day. So even when it is, just trying to get outside to just go for a short walk and just have fresh air it makes a world of difference. I also have 2 cats who are great company, especially in the winter, and they'll just come curl up with you when you're studying. I know myself and a lot of other students use like the sun lamp type thing when you're like sitting at your desk in the morning to, I don't know, help you get that kind of the fake sunlight. Take lots of vitamin D. But I think if you can approach it as kind of like a new challenge for yourself and figure out some things that would work, that's great.
Definitely. And I did get another question real quick, and I see the time, so I just want to make sure we take a moment to address that question as well. So I was asked to speak briefly about the University Counseling Center and other mental health resources. So University Counseling Center provides students with individual counseling as well as group counseling sessions. It should be covered a part of the mandatory student health fee. So hopefully I'm not speaking incorrectly there, but I will say as well, one of the biggest resources our students use is through the Thriving Campus link. That's also, you can look it up online, but it's also provided in our newsletter. That will ask you a series of different questions, like what you're looking or seeking with a provider, what type of insurance you're looking for, location. Many of our students, although University Counseling Center is convenient and it's on site, we do have a location in the medical center as well as on River Campus. Sometimes anonymity can be a little bit challenging. So our students like to also seek outside providers or, outside of kind of the med center area. And that Thriving Campus link will connect you with providers that have already kind of been vetted and screened for different reasons. So that's an excellent resource as well if seeking, and many of our students use it. So I'm hoping that covers it. I will say as well, a great support system is your advisory dean. I'm sure you've heard that many times now, but that's somebody else that you can always go to, or you can come to me or the assistant dean of student affairs if seeking different types of support, and we can help connect you with many resources. So you never have to navigate that alone, but if you would like to, we give you the links in order to do that. But I see my time is up, so I just want to make sure I covered that. That's a great question, so thank you for bringing that up.
All right, well, we'd like to thank our panelists for joining us today for our wellness session. If anyone has additional questions that weren't answered, you can feel free to ask them in the Whova app, and administrative staff and students would be happy to help answer. And it looks like some of our panelists have provided some contact information in the chat as well. So we'll see you in about 15 minutes for our next session. And until then, we'll see you later. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick and Kirsten.